Hello everyone, and welcome to another Tuesday Thoughts video here. I'm Nick Ward with Ward Laboratories, and today we're going to talk about the hot topic of the fall harvest season is the skyrocketing fertilizer price. And what are we supposed to do, how are we supposed to manage in 2022 moving forward. So obviously the first thing that you should do is know why or why not to spend money on that acre, and that's with a soil test. Soil test is going to show what we have. It's going to give us our best tool to predict what the plant is going to see and what the plant's going to need in the future. A routine soil test is $20, so for a $20 bill, you're looking at using $20 spread out over 40 acres. You're looking at that cost to dictate your second largest input on the upcoming crop season. So really inexpensive information to really make a sound decision. So a couple aspects and points to talk about though today with using a soil test. The first would be kind of what kind of practices should I be doing for soil testing. Composites, zones, grids, they all have their different utility and their different places where they work the best. Want to focus on is really the grid soil sampling. We know that our fields have spatial variability, and grid sampling is one of the best ways to address that. And through that, we can really assess where our fertility stands. And what we want to do in lean times is probably go ahead and feed our highest producing acres the necessary fertilizer, and those that are kind of mediocre performers or maybe on the low performance end, we can just kind of like let those skirt by on maybe some reserves that we have. So grid sampling is going to be the best avenue to identify, along with yield maps. We know regions in the field that will have the highest productivity. This is where we're going to focus our fertilizer dollar and our best producing areas. Beyond that then would be, once you have your results, is assessing where to apply, what to apply. Of course, we like to have our recommendations based on yield goal for all your samples. That gives you an idea on what we would typically do. But now if you wanted to adjust that, we have a nice resource here within the Ward Guide, soil fertility test ratings. We lay out first our phosphorus tests, and then we got chloride, potassium, sulfur, magnesium, and then the micros, zinc, iron, manganese, copper, boron, and then we have aluminum at the bottom to assess high pH areas, maybe what the concern would be. So based on the listings we have, and maybe we're going to focus on the phosphorus and the sulfur soil test right now. Really, if looking at the chart, if you're in the very high, it's just plain simple. You can cut this year, and really the chance of losing yield if you're in the very high and not applying is a very, very minute, maybe 1 in every 20-year kind of scenario. You might actually see a yield loss there. But once again, and then if you're in the high category, so for male 3 phosphorus, for instance, 26 to 50 part per million. If you're on the higher end of that, definitely reducing, maybe everything is good. And then if you're kind of on the low end, around that 26 to 30 part per million, a nice traditional starter fertilizer application, either with the seed or dribbled on the surface, or a 2x2 placement of kind of a starter rate, putting out maybe 20 pounds of P2O5 is going to be a good way to kind of maintain or at least feed a little bit of what you've got going on, to not see a large drop maybe next year. And this is where it then gets tricky if you're in these lower ranges, which quite frankly we don't see a lot of people in the lower ranges anymore. Most people are good. Most farmers have been diligent and used their fertilizer dollars wisely. But if you find yourself in maybe some rented ground or some new to you ground, and you find yourself in the low range or the medium range, that's low as 6 to 12 or 13 to 25 ppm, unfortunately, you're really going to have to spend some money this year still on phosphorus. Make sure we don't leave yield on the table. Now, some of the tricks when you get into these low categories. Banding phosphorus fertilizer is a great way to increase application year efficiency. That doesn't mean you necessarily have cheated the system, but you're getting the most out of this year. So if we've got a way to, the one thing would be to think about strip till as a way to band granular dry phosphorus fertilizer. That's a good instance there. Now if we go to sulfur, really this is something we continue to see every year. We've preached on it in previous Tuesday Thought videos, but sulfur's got to be a part of your yearly fertility plan, just like nitrogen. Now our rates can be a little bit less aggressive possibly, especially for those guys that have irrigation, and we know we will get a boost of sulfur when we do start irrigating. But for dryland guys, we still have to put a base rate on. That sulfur rate is going to make your nitrogen more efficient. It's going to make your phosphorus more efficient. So if you try to cut it, you'll end up hurting yourself by having less efficient nitrogen and phosphorus applications. So kind of a bare minimum on sulfur. If you're going to find yourself in the medium or low category, you really need to consider at least putting on 5 pounds of sulfur at some point during the year, preferably early on when the crop will need the most when the soils are cool. So minimum kind of 5 pounds an acre of sulfur, and we can go up from there. Final thought would be on maybe it's a little bit of a source question. Once again, when fertilizer prices were cheap, we really kind of lost sight in the value of animal manure. But for many of our friends in Nebraska, there's plenty of livestock operations around where we can go visit and get some cheaper fertilizer or some cheaper fertility inputs based on manure. So with these run up in fertilizer prices, you can justify the hauling costs with some feedlot manure. You can justify the freight with poultry litter. Those products are gonna pencil out a lot better now with the increase in the MAP and DAP prices. So don't fret on not being able to source dry fertilizer. Go look at our friends in the animal industry, and let's start a conversation with them for finding some less expensive, not cheap, but less expensive fertilizer inputs. So hopefully that gives you a lot of ideas and things to think about. Maybe not as many silver bullets as you might have wanted in a talk today, but really the whole thing about making money in farming is managing your dollar, and it starts right here with those soil tests from Ward Laboratories on the fertility side. So we'll catch you next time.